Embarrassment. Welcome back to Street Scores. It's your boy Rico giving y'all that 2018 Week 2 review edition of Redskins Report. I'm 30 subscribers away from 1,000. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. And also drop a like or dislike. If you rock with this video the long way or the wrong way, let me know. And also, shouts out to the YouTube and Twitter page Redskins Run 21 for a lot of the videos that I use. Make sure y'all check out his pages and follow him. But it's time to get to this analysis. Let's get it. Pure embarrassment. Our 21-9 loss to the Colts had 57,013 fans in attendance at FedEx Field. That's a record low for home openers in FedEx Field. This record is so bad that the second lowest attendance is 76,512 in 2015. There were 19,499 less fans in attendance in this game than the previous worst. That's just crazy. We are now 1-1 on the season, and we are now 10-21 against the Colts all time in regular season games. We didn't score a single touchdown and went 5 for 15 on third downs. But y'all already know I'm about to hit y'all with these stats the entire episode. Same thing every time. But now it's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, really the bad, worst, and the worst. Starting with the offense that after week 1 is still first in the NFL in average time of possession, first in the NFL in first downs drawn by penalty, third in the NFL in rushing plays of 10 or more yards with 9 of them, and lastly fourth in the NFL in first downs per game. Alex Smith completed 33 of his 46 passes for 292 yards and no touchdowns and no interceptions for an ugly 88.3 passer rating. This was an off game for him, even though he did rack up a decent amount of total yards. He played in all of the offense's 74 snaps. He gained 14 yards on rushes and one of them picked up a first down on fourth down. But throwing wise, it was pretty ugly. 23 of his 33 completed passes were to running backs and tight ends, a lot of dink and dunks, and 37% of his passing yards came from the final 2 offensive drives when the Redskins were already down 12 points. So a lot of his stats were padded. Also, between him and Jay Gruden, somebody needed to switch up that snap count. The Colts got off the ball as quickly as possible almost all game. It's as if they knew the snap count. And for some reason, the Redskins refused to counter this by consistently changing their snap counts. And a lot of the offensive line's abuse was caused by the Colts D-line exploding off the ball at the same time or even faster than the offensive line. It is both Jay Gruden's and Alex Smith's responsibility to adjust to this. Change the snap count and force some offsides and encroachment penalties. Then that would have suppressed their snap count aggressiveness. But overall, it was a lackluster game from Alex Smith, but the play calling, offensive line, and receivers didn't give him any help at all. Now on to this so-called Hogs 2.0. One of the worst games I've seen them play while fully healthy ever. I can't believe how bad they look. Even the Pro Bowlers look terrible. They allowed Alex Smith to be pressured on 20% of his dropbacks, which isn't terrible, even though they did allow 2 sacks and 3 QB hits. But the worst part was the run block. Their run blocking was so passive it looked like it was pass blocking a lot of the time. I don't know if they were told to do that this game, but I know it definitely didn't work. But let's get into each individual lineman going from left to right. Trent Williams had one of his worst games I've ever seen from a healthy version of him. He played in 73 of the offense's 74 snaps and was the least bad offensive lineman while he was in the game, even though he did commit the most penalties. He committed 2, and he is now tied for first in the NFL in most accepted penalties, regardless of position. And while his pass blocking was suspect, allowing a hurry and a QB hit, which is only the 3rd QB hit he's allowed since the beginning of the 2017 season, his run blocking was not too bad. The offense's only run for over 15 yards was a 25-yard Jamison Crowder run that was ran to Trent Williams' side. PFF gave Trent Williams the highest run blocking grade amongst Redskins offensive linemen against the Colts with a 69 grade. Sean Laval was terrible. He sold us. Double agent. He allowed a sack, a QB hit, and 4 QB hurries. That's a total of 6 pressures allowed. The only interior lineman to have more than that in a game this season is rookie Frank Ragnow with 7. Emphasis on rookie. Terrible to allow that much pressure from the interior. Second-year Chase Roulier, it was a pretty dark day for him at both center and right guard after Brandon Sheriff sat out for 4 snaps. I like his versatility to play both center and guard, but he didn't play either one very well on Sunday. Roulier allowed 2 hurries. That's not terrible, but it's not good. Brandon Sheriff only missed 4 snaps due to a minor leg injury, nothing serious. In passing game wise, he was the most effective. He didn't allow a single pressure, but he did look a little soggy in the run game. But nonetheless, he received the 2nd highest grade amongst offensive players from PFF with a 71.5, which is only lower than Alex Smith's. But I'm still surprised I saw the bully get bullied quite a bit against the Colts. Morgan Moses had one of his worst healthy games also. He looked bad in the run game, but he also allowed a QB hit and a sack in the passing game. He also committed a holding penalty. It was just a dark day. Tony Bergstrom stepped in at center for 4 snaps once Chase Roulier moved to right guard to replace Brandon Sheriff. Tony Bergstrom wasn't particularly bad or good while out there for his first offensive action of the season. Ty Nsekhe played 1 snap at left tackle while Trent Williams sat out for 1 snap, and rookies Jerron Christian and Casey Dunn were inactive. Good. Let them incubate. Now on to the running backs. Adrian Peterson only played in 25 of 74 offensive snaps. He gained an abysmal 20 yards and 11 rushes, 1.8 yards per carry. His longest rush went for 14 of his 20 yards. So to put it in perspective, his other 10 rushes only produced 6 yards. Only one of his rushes went for a first down. Adrian Peterson leads the league in negative rushing attempts with 7, and rushes that have resulted in 0 or less yardage gained with 11. Even though most of the blame should be placed on the offensive line and play calling, he also missed a few holes that could have resulted in bigger gains. But at least Adrian Peterson caught all of his 3 targets for 30 yards and a first down. Peterson is 3rd in receiving yards on the team. Chris Thompson played in 50 offensive snaps. Run game wise, CT had an even worse day than Adrian Peterson. He gained 1 yard on 4 rushes. One of his rushes went for 8 yards, and then his other 3 combined for -7, a 0.25 yards per carry average. As bad as it gets, y'all. But in the passing game, even though a lot of them were dink and dunks in comeback time, CT did what he does. He caught 13 of his 14 targets for 92 yards and 5 first downs. His 13 receptions is tied 2nd in Redskins franchise history with Art Monk, who did it twice, and Kelvin Bryant. And this was 1 catch short of Roy Halu's 14 catches in a game when John Beck was dinking and dunking up a storm against the 49ers led by who? None other than Alex Smith. CT leads the Redskins this season in targets with 21, receptions with 19, receiving yards with 155, yards from scrimmage with 221, and first downs gained with 13. Rob Kelly only played in 1 snap where he gained a yard for a first down at fullback. He suffered a toe injury that led him to being placed on the injured reserve. And Samaje Perine was inactive again. And with Rob Kelly's injury, Samaje Perine will have no choice but to be activated against the Packers this Sunday. Now to the tight ends. Jordan Reed played in 40 of the 74 offensive snaps, which is the most by far of the tight end group. He caught 6 of his 8 targets for 55 yards and 2 first downs. He was great at separating like he normally is, but his blocking was back to being ugly. And he also had a very costly fumble. The offense was finally in rhythm, clicking, and then he fumbled at the Colts' 27-yard line, right at the red zone. This is somewhere you expect to at least get 3 points, and the Redskins walked away with 0. And this was in clutch time too. It was comeback season, but Jordan Reed was in more of a give-back season. 34-year-old Vernon Davis played in 26 snaps. He caught his only target for a 7-yard first down, even though he ran 15 routes. His blocking was also bad, and PFF gave him the 2nd lowest Redskins offensive player grade with a 47.7. That should tell you just about everything you need to know from his performance in the game. 2nd year Jeremy Sprinkle played in 13 snaps. The Redskins ran the ball 20 fewer times last week, so that is a direct correlation to his low snap count since he's primarily a run blocker. 9 of his 13 snaps were run blocking snaps to prove it. He blocked pretty well, but was a non-factor in the passing game. Hopefully that will change at some point in this season. If he can develop into an effective route runner, separator, and pass catcher, we can truly have something special. The wide receivers disappointed again. Josh Doctson led all of the wide receivers with 71 snaps, and even with him running routes on most of his snaps, he matched his career high with only 4 receptions, and he gained 37 yards and first downs on all 4 of these catches. That is 9.3 yards per reception, which is good, but it's only 0.76 yards per route ran, which is bad. He had that big drop on a nice deep pass thrown by Alex Smith, and he also dropped the only possible Redskins touchdown on a fade route, which is also bad. He's starting to look like he just ain't the one. It's starting to look like it's time to just let go of the fact that he was a first-round pick. The Redskins might need to admit they made a mistake and stop forcing the situation. It can cost us games. We can't sit around and wait for that fire to finally spark in them. Paul Richardson played in 68 snaps and was the Redskins' most effective wideout against the Colts. He wasn't balling out, but he did lead the receiving groups in yards with 63 and first downs gained with 4, tied with Josh Doctson. He caught 4 passes on 6 targets on 46 routes ran. He had just as many receptions as Josh Doctson, but outgained them by 26 yards. Jamison Crowder played in 69 snaps and had an off day with 2 receptions on 4 targets with 8 yards and no first downs. I'm surprised with how he is a slot receiver on an Alex Smith team, plus how much chemistry him and Alex Smith had in the offseason, and the fact that he doesn't have to worry about special teams duties anymore, that he is not putting up better numbers. Not only is he not top 4 on the team in receiving yards and receiving first downs, but he's also not even top 4 in targets. I'm honestly surprised. But it's only 2 games in. Maybe the rest of the season will tell a different story. But at least he did lead the team in rushing yards against the Colts with 29. That is terrible. In his first game of the 2018 season, Brian Quick played in 5 offensive snaps and was not targeted. Jehu Chesson was targeted on his only offensive snap, but failed to come back to the ball on his route, which resulted in an incomplete pass, and Chesson was released shortly afterwards. He played well in special teams other than his holding penalty on the second half opening kickoff, but it just wasn't enough. Rashad Perryman and Michael Floyd, who is being shown on the highlight reel right now, were signed. Michael Floyd, being a 6'3" X receiver type, looks like he was brought in to take the place of Josh Doctson. Overall, the offense was very ineffective, and it's not entirely at the fault of the players. Jay Gruden did a very poor job of play calling and, most importantly, making adjustments. The Redskins offense has not scored a touchdown in 6 quarters. There's only been 8 quarters so far this season. And also, with how dominant we looked against the Cardinals, it's amazing to see how we look so weak against the Colts. It was day and night, and I refuse to believe that we are that bad. This game just screamed multiple things. Number 1, inconsistency. Number 2, they came into the game like they were the better team, and when they got bullied, they weren't ready to fight back for some reason. And then, of course, number 3, lack of adjustments, or effective ones at the very least. But the offense weren't the only ones to scream those 3 sad points. The defense also had the same problem. Let's get into them. Overall, the defense was also inconsistent. Came into this game too high off that previous win and lacked any effective adjustments against the Colts' short route yards after catch game. And the defense also never adjusted to how the Colts kept matching T.Y. Hilton against Fabian Moreau a lot of the game. Overall, the defense didn't look ready and never adjusted effectively to the Colts' game plan. The Redskins allowed the Colts to score touchdowns on all 3 of their red zone trips. They allowed 104 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, and 5 rushing first downs. They also allowed 9 of the Colts' 16 third downs to be converted. The defensive pass rush pressured Andrew Luck on a third of his dropbacks, which is pretty good. And also, after this game, the Redskins defense is first in the NFL in yards per game allowed with 247, first in the NFL in passing yards allowed per game with 161, second in the NFL in points allowed per game with 13.5, second in the NFL in first downs allowed per game with 19.5, and lastly, the Redskins are still first in the NFL in fourth down conversion percentage allowed with 0. Now let's talk about the trenches. Rookie Alabama Daron Payne didn't have a great game. On 39 snaps, he had 2 stops in the run game, but he couldn't generate any pressure on his 18 pass rushing snaps. He wasn't terrible, but he definitely wasn't the dominant force we hoped he would be against the Colts. He'll improve over time though. Second year Alabama Jonathan Allen had a pretty good game. Not great though. He led all defensive linemen in snaps played with 43, and he had 3 solo tackles with 4 total tackles. He also got to the quarterback with 2 QB hits and a hurry. One of these hits led to the second DJ Swearinger interception. Pro Football Focus gave Jonathan Allen the second highest rating of the entire team with a 79.5. That's just talent meeting experience. Daron Payne has the talent, now he just needs the experience that Jonathan Allen has and needs to grow up. Matt Ioannidis played pretty well also. In 37 snaps, he had a run stop and 3 QB pressures, which is tied for a team high with Jonathan Allen. He had a QB hurry, a hit, and a sack. He now leads the Redskins in both total pressures with 7 and sacks with 2. Ziggy Hood played in 18 snaps. He had a decent game for him. He had 2 run stops, but on 10 pass rush snaps, he did not generate any pressure. This was a decent game for him, which is bad for pretty much everybody else on the D-line. Pro Football Focus gave him a team low grade of 40.1, which proves my point. Rookie Tim Settle only played in 6 snaps, and in that limited amount of time, he managed to record a QB hurry, which is more than Ziggy Hood did in 18 snaps. I want Tim Settle to get more playing time than Ziggy Hood. I'm not sure why he plays far less than Ziggy, but I'm hoping it changes soon. And Caleb Brantley was inactive again, and Stacey McGee will eventually come back from the PUP list, and he will have to take somebody's spot, and I really hope it's Ziggy Hood's and not Caleb Brantley's. Now these outside linebackers, they were non-existent. The D-line had flashes but were inconsistent overall, but the outside linebackers just didn't really show up at all. There was a backup tackle in the game. Pro Bowl Ryan Kerrigan played in 50 snaps and the only real stat he recorded was an assistant tackle. He had 3 QB pressures though, but that's not enough from a player of his caliber. I'm expecting much more from him. He was very close to Andrew Luck a lot of the game, but he was never able to get home or cause any real pressure. Preston Smith played in 47 snaps and was disappointing. He had 4 total tackles with 2 solos and a QB hit. This was the first QB hit this season between both him and Ryan Kerrigan. Tragic. I was expecting a much bigger day from him though, especially since this is a contract year for him. He's trying to get paid, and he's not playing like it. Ryan Anderson played in 14 snaps and didn't exist just like last year. He generated no pressures and recorded no stats. I hope this was just a bad day, because he actually mattered last week. Pernell McPhee played in 11 snaps and in that limited amount of time actually played well. He had 2 QB hits in his only 5 pass rush snaps, but he did commit a roughing the passer penalty. But overall, he looks like he needs more snaps. He's secretly been the most efficient outside linebacker on the team. But on to the off-ball linebacker group. They had a pretty good day overall. Mason Foster had a great day with his 60 snaps. He looked like one of the only people out there that truly cared. He played in all of the defensive snaps but 1. He had a team high solo tackles with 8 and total tackles with 11. And he had a QB hurry and 6 pass rushes. And most importantly, he batted up Andrew Luck's pass that led to DJ's first interception. And even though he gave up 5 receptions on his 6 targets and 26 coverage snaps, these receptions only totaled up to 18 yards gained and only 1 first down. And Mason Foster made the tackle on all of those receptions. Zach Brown played in 51 snaps, which is still low from him just like last week. So you could tell the Redskins are trying to limit his snaps to keep him fresh and healthy, or they may be trying to limit his coverage snaps, which is his biggest weakness. Or maybe both. Zach was able to get a QB hurry on his 6 pass rushing attempts. He also had 6 assisted tackles with his 10 total, and which is very great for him. He didn't allow a single reception on his 18 coverage snaps. That's a huge improvement. PFF has him graded as the 4th highest amongst inside linebackers around the NFL with a 90 overall grade through the first 2 weeks. Josh Harvey-Clemens played in 10 snaps, and most of them came on 3rd downs and passing plays, which makes sense. He didn't generate any pressure on his 3 pass rushing snaps, and he didn't allow a reception in 6 of his coverage snaps because he was not targeted. Zach Vigil only played in 1 snap and didn't have an effect on the game. And again, Sean Dion Hamilton only played on special teams. I want to see him out there playing, but the off-ball linebackers are playing pretty well so far, so let Hamilton grow and mature so he can be ready to lead our defense in the future. Now the cornerbacks. They struggled with the chasing game they had to play all game. The crossing routes and picks the Colts were setting with speedy receivers like T.Y. Hilton were killing the cornerbacks all game. Josh Norman played in all 61 of the defensive snaps and had a pretty off game. He allowed all 4 of his targets to be caught for 47 yards and a touchdown. He also missed a game-high 2 tackles, with one of them being that missed tackle on a great read by Josh Norman that could have been a safety. The Colts did a good job of scheming against the Redskins defensive backs, but for Josh Norman and a few others, the execution also wasn't there. Quentin Dunbar played in all but 1 defensive snap and was not the same lockup corner he was last week. He gave up a team worst 52 receiving yards and 2 first downs. 2 catches he allowed for first downs were the Colts' biggest plays of the game, a 22-yarder for T.Y. and a 21-yarder for the Ryan Grant. But Quentin Dunbar did have 5 solo tackles, and he did have a pass defensed on Jack Doyle. And through the first 2 weeks of the season, his great play in Arizona still has him tied for the most passes defensed with 5. Fabian Moreau played in 39 snaps and also had an off day after not allowing a single reception last week on 36 coverage snaps and 2 targets. Against the Colts, he allowed 3 catches on his 4 targets that went for a total of 21 yards and a first down. He also committed a 37-yard pass interference penalty on T.Y. Hilton that led to the Colts' 2nd touchdown, which was the most yards the Colts picked up in 1 play in the entire game. But at least Fabian Moreau had 2 tackles with one of them being solos, and he also had a QB hurry and just 3 pass rush snaps. Rookie Greg Stroman and Danny Johnson only played in special teams. Greg Stroman was the primary return man for punts and kickoffs, and Adonis Alexander was inactive again. Now the safeties. They had a decent game overall with some highlights coming from DJ. DJ Swearinger played in all of the Redskins' 61 defensive snaps, and he allowed 3 receptions. One was a 3rd down conversion reception and another was a touchdown, but that was the worst of it. DJ had 3 solo tackles, a QB hurry on his only pass rushing snap, and most importantly had 2 big interceptions that kept us in the game. His 2 interceptions led to 6 of the 9 Redskins points. Without him, we would have only had 3 points. He was the main reason we were still kinda in the game for so long. This is the second time he had 2 interceptions in one game since he's become a Redskin in 2017. Pro Football Focus gave DJ a 91.5 grade for his performance against the Colts, which was the 8th highest grade amongst all NFL players in Week 2. Hell of a game other than those 2 big receptions he allowed. Meanwhile, second-year Monte Nicholson, who also played in all 61 defensive snaps, was only targeted 3 times out of his 32 coverage snaps, but he allowed 2 of these targets to be caught for 20 yards, one being a 3rd down conversion and the other being a touchdown. And both were to tight end Lyriq Harper, like I warned everybody in the preview when I stated that the Redskins must do a good job of covering the tight ends. He did have 1 good coverage play against Lyriq Harper that caused a 3 and out, and Monte also tied a career high in 6 total tackles with 4 of them being solos. But he also missed 1 tackle, but at least it wasn't 2 like last week. Deshazor Everett played in 2 defensive snaps and didn't do anything noteworthy. Rookie Troy Apke is still hurt from a hamstring injury, so he did not play, and Kenny Latler only played on special teams. Overall, the defense played pretty poorly. They didn't play anywhere near as bad as the offense, though. The defense played decent enough to win a football game. They, mostly DJ Swearinger and Mason Foster, made big plays, but they weren't consistent enough from top to bottom to prevent the Colts from scoring 21 points. And again, that isn't bad enough to lose football games alone. 5 teams allowed 21 points or more and won in Week 2. And the Packers and Vikings each allowed 29 points in a tie. I'm not taking the blame away from the defense, especially the corners and outside linebackers, but they didn't play inexcusably terrible. I prefer much better, but considering the scheme drawn up against them with the quick throws and crossing routes, they played well enough to win a football game. The first and last scoring drives of the game were the only drives where the defense just looked helpless. Now Dustin Hopkins, he made 3 of his 4 field goal attempts. He missed a 49-yarder that he made earlier in the game. Can't be too mad at him, but I still expect perfection from kickers. Also, 3 of Dustin Hopkins' kickoffs landed in the back of the end zones for touchbacks, and the other one landed at the Colts' 5-yard line and was only returned 19 yards. Nothing major. Tressway had a sort of off day. 4 of his punts were either fair caught or downed inside the Colts' 23-yard line, which is good, but 1 punt was shanked and only traveled 28 yards before it sailed out of bounds at the Colts' 40-yard line. Ugly kick, rare mistake from him. But that's it for this episode. Thanks for the view. Terrible loss. One word to describe it: embarrassing. The offense had a very dark day at all levels. Our strength, the offensive line, had one of the worst days I've ever seen them have while healthy. Jay Gruden's play calling was sad. There was no effective adjustments made on either side of the ball. The defense didn't have a great day, but they made some splash plays along with some inconsistency. How do y'all feel about this embarrassing loss to the Colts at home? Who do you feel the Redskins really are? Week 1 Redskins or Week 2 Redskins? Who was your favorite player on Sunday? Who was your most disappointing player on Sunday? Let me know in the comments. Be heard. And while y'all at it, make sure y'all Dolemite fake punch that like button, favorite, subscribe, I'll subscribe back, and most importantly, comment and share. I'm 30 subscribers away from 1,000, so please subscribe if you haven't. I bring Redskins content at least 3 times a week. And again, thank y'all for the support. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.